In the bustling core of New York City, a magnificent mansion towered above, symbolizing the unyielding drive of Henry Walker. At the age of 55, Henry had become a formidable giant in the industry, his steel empire, Walker Industries, reigning supreme in the marketplace. His tall, commanding presence, accentuated by silver hair and a perpetually stern visage, evoked both admiration and trepidation. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Within the opulent confines of his exquisitely decorated office, adorned with industrial artwork and framed snapshots of his humble beginnings, Henry painstakingly scrutinized the quarterly reports. Efficiency must improve, he murmured, his voice resonating in the expansive room. The ornate clock on the wall chimed 6, but for Henry the workday was far from over. He believed fervently in discipline and relentless hard work, principles he was determined to instill in his only son, Michael. Michael Walker, a 25-year-old with a gentle disposition, was the antithesis of his father. Nurtured in the lap of luxury, Michael had become accustomed to a life of comfort and ease. His attractiveness and natural charm endeared him to many, yet he lacked the steely resolve that defined Henry. Despite receiving an education from the finest institutions and participating in numerous leadership programs, Michael grappled with living up to his father's stringent expectations. Henry's relentless pursuit of perfection and Michael's struggle to measure up created a chasm between them, filled with unspoken tension and unmet expectations. As Henry continued to work late into the night, the weight of his ambition and the hope for his son's future weighed heavily on his shoulders, casting a long shadow over the lavish mansion in the heart of the city. "Good evening," Dad Michael greeted as he stepped into the office, his voice respectful yet tinged with weariness. Michael, Henry responded, not lifting his gaze from the papers before him. "Have you reviewed the latest project proposals?" "Yes, I have," Michael replied, handing over a meticulously organized folder. "But there's something else I wanted to discuss." Later, Henry interjected curtly, "We have urgent matters to address." Michael sighed inwardly, accustomed to his father's abrupt dismissals. He retreated to his room, a spacious suite adorned with the luxuries of their wealth. Behind a hidden panel in his bookshelf lay his secret haven, a small studio where he could immerse himself in his true passion, painting. Tonight he sought refuge there, hoping to find peace and solace in the strokes of his brush. In stark contrast to the grandeur of the Walker mansion, a humble apartment in Brooklyn sheltered Sarah Miller and her family. At just 23, Sarah bore the weight of being the sole provider, working tirelessly as a cleaner to support her ailing mother and younger brother. Her days were grueling, filled with the repetitive motions of scrubbing floors and polishing surfaces, yet she faced each task with unwavering resolve. Her strength was fueled by an unbreakable love for her family, whose well-being hinged on her relentless efforts. One early morning, as the first rays of dawn began to pierce through the cityscape, Sarah arrived at the mansion for her cleaning shift. She moved silently through the opulent corridors, her presence almost ghost-like, though her meticulous diligence did not escape everyone's notice. Michael, unable to find sleep, wandered aimlessly through the mansion and stumbled upon Sarah, deeply engrossed in cleaning the grand staircase. The intensity of her focus and dedication struck him, highlighting the vast chasm between their lives. "Good morning," Michael greeted, startling Sarah from her work. "Good morning, mister." Walker, Sarah responded, her tone polite but edged with caution. Interactions with the Walker family were infrequent and often intimidating. "Please call me Michael," he said, offering a friendly smile. "You're always here so early." "There's a lot to be done before the day begins," Sarah explained, her eyes betraying her weariness. Michael nodded, feeling a sudden pang of guilt for the privileged life he had always taken for granted. "I admire your dedication," he said earnestly. "Thank you," Sarah replied, a touch of warmth in her voice. "It's necessary." Their brief exchange lingered in Michael's mind, a poignant reminder of the stark contrasts and quiet resilience that defined Sarah's world. Henry Walker had always been a keen observer of those around him. Over the months, he had watched Sarah Miller perform her duties with unwavering diligence in his mansion. She was thorough, dependable, and above all, honest. Her integrity in every small task did not go unnoticed by Henry. One morning, while sipping his coffee and gazing out of his office window, Henry overheard a conversation between two of his senior employees discussing the importance of loyalty and dedication. Their words struck a chord deep within him. He realized that his son Michael desperately needed a profound lesson in humility and responsibility, qualities that could only be imparted by someone who exemplified these virtues. Henry knew exactly who that person should be. Later that evening, Henry summoned Michael into his office. The room was dimly lit, the only light emanating from the antique lamp on Henry's mahogany desk. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Michael entered, curiosity mingled with a hint of apprehension in his eyes. "Michael, have a seat," Henry began, his tone unusually gentle yet firm. Michael sat down, sensing that this conversation was different from their typical business discussions. "What's this about, Dad?" he asked, trying to decipher his father's expression. Henry leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers thoughtfully. "I've been contemplating your future, Michael. You need to learn what it truly means to be responsible, to grasp the real value of hard work and humility." Michael's brow furrowed slightly, his curiosity piqued. "And how do you propose I learn that?" Henry's eyes softened, yet remained resolute. "By spending time with someone who embodies those very traits. Sarah Miller has shown extraordinary dedication and integrity. I want you to work alongside her, learn from her experiences, and understand the struggles and triumphs of hard work firsthand." Michael's eyes widened in surprise, a mix of emotions swirling within him. "You want me to work with Sarah?" he asked, incredulous. "Yes," Henry affirmed. "It's time for you to step out of your comfort zone and see life from a different perspective. Only then will you truly appreciate the values I hold dear." The weight of his father's words sank in, leaving Michael to ponder the unexpected turn his life was about to take. As he left his father's office, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation and unease, knowing that the days ahead would challenge him in ways he had never imagined. Michael frowned, his confusion evident. "I thought I was doing well at the office," he said, struggling to comprehend his father's words. "You are. But there's more to life than just business. You need grounding," Henry replied with a firm tone. "Which is why I've decided you should marry Sarah." Michael's eyes widened in shock. "Marry Sarah, the cleaner?" Henry nodded resolutely. "Yes, Sarah. She embodies the qualities you lack. She's hardworking, honest, and responsible, qualities you need to learn and appreciate." Michael's mind raced, grappling with the absurdity of the idea. "But Dad, marriage isn't something you can just decide like a business deal." Henry's gaze hardened, his voice taking on a steely edge. "This isn't just about marriage, Michael. It's about shaping your character. If you respect my judgment, you'll understand why this is necessary." Seeing no way out, Michael reluctantly agreed, his heart heavy with apprehension. "All right, Dad, if you believe this is what's best, I'll do it." The next day, Henry sought out Sarah. He found her in the library, meticulously dusting the shelves. She looked up, startled to see him approaching. "Good morning, Sarah," Henry began, his tone unusually warm. "I need to discuss something important with you." Sarah set down her dust cloth, her heart pounding. "Yes, Mr. Walker." Henry took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Sarah, I've been watching you work with dedication and integrity. I believe you possess qualities that are not just admirable but essential for my son's growth. I want you to marry Michael." Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief, her mind struggling to process the unexpected proposal. "Marry Michael," she echoed, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes," Henry confirmed. "I know this must come as a shock, but I believe you are the person who can help him understand the true values of life: hard work, honesty, and responsibility." Sarah was silent for a moment, her thoughts swirling. "But Mr. Walker, this is a huge decision. Marriage isn't something to be taken lightly." "I understand," Henry said gently, "but I believe in your strength and character. I have faith that you can help Michael become a better man." Sarah looked into Henry's eyes, seeing the sincerity and determination there. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before her. "If you truly believe this is the right path, Mr. Walker, then I will agree." Henry nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "Thank you, Sarah. I know this won't be easy, but together, you and Michael can create something meaningful." As Sarah returned to her work, the enormity of what lay ahead settled over her. Meanwhile, Michael grappled with the realization that his life was about to change in ways he had never imagined, feeling a strange mix of fear and hope for the future. "Mr. Walker, can I help you with something?" Sarah asked, her voice polite but tinged with wariness. "Yes, Sarah. I have a proposition for you," Henry began, his tone serious and deliberate. "I want you to marry my son, Michael." Sarah blinked, stunned. "Marry Michael? But why?" "Because I believe you can teach him the values he desperately needs. Your dedication and integrity are exactly what he lacks," Henry explained. He then added, "In return, I'll provide a substantial financial incentive, enough to cover your mother's medical expenses and your brother's education." Sarah's mind whirled. The offer was tempting, but the implications were daunting. "This is a lot to consider, Mr. Walker," she said, her voice trembling slightly with the weight of the decision. "I understand," Henry said, his tone softening with empathy. "Take your time, but know this isn't just about my son. It's an opportunity for you and your family." Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she processed his words. The promise of financial security for her family was almost too good to be true. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Walker," she finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "But this is a life-changing decision. I need to think it over." Henry nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Of course, Sarah. Take the time you need. I have great respect for you and your abilities. This could be a new beginning for all of us." As Henry left the library, Sarah stood there, her heart pounding. She knew this decision could alter the course of her life and her family's future. The responsibility and pressure were immense, but so were the potential rewards. She needed to weigh her options carefully, considering not just the financial benefits, but the personal implications of marrying into the Walker family. That evening, Sarah sat alone in her small apartment, thinking about the proposition. The faces of her ailing mother and hopeful younger brother flashed in her mind. The promise of a better future for them was a powerful motivator, but the uncertainty of such a drastic change filled her with apprehension. She knew she needed to make a decision that would not only honor her integrity, but also secure a stable and prosperous future for her loved ones. That evening, Sarah sat at the small kitchen table in her modest apartment, her head resting in her hands. Across from her sat her mother, frail but wise, her eyes filled with concern. "What's troubling you?" Sarah, her mother, asked gently, her voice soft yet probing. Sarah sighed deeply, lifting her gaze to meet her mother's. "Mr. Walker wants me to marry his son. He says it's to teach him humility and responsibility." Her mother's eyes widened in surprise. "And what do you think about this?" "I don't know, Mom. It's such a strange proposal, but it could change our lives. It would pay for your treatments and ensure Tim's education," Sarah replied, her voice a mixture of hope and fear. Her mother reached across the table, taking Sarah's hand in hers. Sometimes opportunities come in the most unexpected forms. You must decide if this is the right path for you. Sarah nodded, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on her shoulders. I need to think about it. As she lay in bed that night, Sarah's mind was a tumultuous storm of thoughts and emotions. The proposal was unconventional, even absurd, yet the potential benefits for her family were undeniable. She decided she would meet with Henry the next day to discuss the terms further, knowing that whatever choice she made would irrevocably alter the course of her life. The next morning, with a firm resolve, Sarah returned to the Walker mansion. She found Henry in his office, waiting expectantly. "Good morning, mister," Walker Sarah greeted, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Good morning, Sarah," Henry replied, motioning for her to sit. "Have you had time to consider my proposition?" "Yes, I have," Sarah began, her tone measured. "I understand the reasons behind your request and the potential benefits for my family. But I need to know more about what this arrangement would entail. It's a significant decision, and I want to make sure it's the right one." Henry nodded, appreciating her cautious approach. "Of course, Sarah. I respect your need for clarity. This isn't a decision to be taken lightly. I am prepared to offer full financial support for your mother's medical expenses and your brother's education. Additionally, I will ensure you are well taken care of." Sarah listened carefully, weighing each word. "And what about Michael? How does he feel about this?" "Michael is hesitant, but he understands the importance of this arrangement," Henry admitted. "He knows he has much to learn, and I believe your influence will be beneficial." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the situation. "All right, Mr. Walker, I will agree to this arrangement, but I need your assurance that my family's needs will be met and that Michael and I will approach this with mutual respect." Henry's expression softened, a hint of relief in his eyes. "You have my word, Sarah. Your family's well-being is as important to me as my son's growth." As Sarah left the office, a sense of determination filled her. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on, driven by the hope of a better future for her family. "Mr. Walker, I've thought about your proposal," Sarah began, taking a deep breath. "And I've decided to accept." As she sat in her small Brooklyn apartment, the weight of Henry Walker's proposition weighed heavily on her mind. Her mother's hopeful eyes and her brother's innocent smile had fueled her decision. She took another deep breath and dialed the number Henry had given her. "Mr. Walker?" "It's Sarah," she said when he answered. "I've decided to accept your proposal." "Excellent," Sarah Henry replied, his voice firm and satisfied. "We will start preparations immediately." The following days were a whirlwind of activity at the Walker mansion. Elaborate wedding plans quickly took shape. Michael, though still in shock over the arrangement, respected his father's decision and tried to make peace with it. He often found solace in his hidden studio, painting furiously to cope with the overwhelming changes. One evening, Michael approached his father, his face etched with uncertainty. "Dad, is this really necessary? Marrying someone I barely know?" Michael Henry replied, his tone unwavering, "This is for your own good. Trust me, in time you will understand." Meanwhile, Sarah faced a different kind of turmoil. Her neighbors and co-workers whispered behind her back, their judgmental glances adding to her anxiety. One afternoon as she walked home, an old flame, David, intercepted her. "Sarah, I heard the news," David said, his voice laced with bitterness. "You're marrying into the Walker family." Sarah paused, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. "Yes, David, I am." David's eyes narrowed. "And you're okay with this? Marrying a man you don't love, just for money?" "It's not just for money," Sarah retorted, her voice trembling. It's for my family. My mother's medical expenses, my brother's education, they depend on this." David shook his head, disappointment evident in his gaze. "I never thought you'd sell yourself short like this, Sarah." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, but she held her ground. "You don't understand, David. This is my choice, and I'm doing what I believe is best for my family." David sighed, his bitterness giving way to a softer tone. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Sarah. I really do." As Sarah continued her walk home, she felt a mixture of sadness and resolve. She knew the path she had chosen was fraught with challenges, but she was determined to face them head-on for the sake of her loved ones. Back at the Walker mansion, preparations continued at a frantic pace. The grandeur of the upcoming wedding was a stark contrast to the inner turmoil both Sarah and Michael felt. Yet amid the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope that perhaps, through this unlikely union, they might find a deeper understanding and respect for each other. The night before the wedding, Sarah stood in her small room at the mansion, staring out the window. The city lights twinkled in the distance, a reminder of the world she was leaving behind. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the journey ahead. Meanwhile, Michael sat in his hidden studio, the canvas before him reflecting his tumultuous emotions. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that this marriage could be the catalyst for change his father believed it would be. As dawn broke on their wedding day, both Sarah and Michael prepared to step into the unknown, their hearts heavy with uncertainty, but also with a faint glimmer of hope for what the future might hold. Sarah nodded, keeping her expression neutral. "It's complicated, David. I'm doing it for my family." David scoffed, his bitterness palpable. "And what about us? We had plans, dreams. Are you just going to throw that away?" "I'm sorry, David," Sarah said, her voice breaking with emotion. "I have to think about my mother and brother. This is the best way to secure their future." David's eyes darkened with jealousy and resentment. "You'll regret this, Sarah. Mark my words." As the wedding day approached, the tension within the Walker mansion grew palpable. Sarah moved in temporarily to acclimate to her new life, feeling like an outsider amidst the opulent surroundings. The mansion staff watched her with a mix of curiosity and skepticism, making her feel even more isolated. One morning, while Sarah was trying on her wedding dress, a soft knock on the door startled her. "Come in," she called. Michael entered, his expression conflicted and uncertain. "Sarah, I just wanted to see how you're doing." "I'm managing," Sarah replied, offering a weak smile. "This is all so surreal." Michael nodded, stepping closer. "I know this isn't easy for you. It's not easy for me either, but I think we should try to make the best of it." Sarah looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and vulnerability there. "You're right, we should." The next day, as the wedding preparations continued, chaos erupted. The floral arrangements, which were supposed to be a simple yet elegant setup, arrived in disarray. The caterer called, canceling at the last minute. It became clear that these disruptions were no accident. Sarah stood in the midst of the chaos, feeling overwhelmed. "What is happening?" she murmured, trying to keep her composure. Henry stormed into the room, his face red with anger. "Who is responsible for this mess?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the halls. Michael stepped forward, his jaw set in determination. "Dad, I'll handle this. Just give me a moment." Michael approached Sarah, taking her hand gently. "Let's step outside for a moment. I need to talk to you." They walked out to the garden, the crisp air providing a brief respite from the turmoil inside. "Sarah, I think someone is trying to sabotage the wedding," Michael said, his voice tense. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. "But why? Who would do this?" Michael sighed, frustration evident. I don't know, but we need to stay strong and not let this ruin our plans. As they stood together in the garden, a sense of unity began to form between them. Despite the chaos and uncertainty, they realized they needed to support each other to navigate the challenges ahead. Back inside, Henry was barking orders, determined to get everything back on track. The staff scrambled to fix the floral arrangements and find a new caterer. The atmosphere was electric with tension, but also with a renewed sense of purpose. As the wedding day finally arrived, Sarah and Michael stood at the altar, their hearts heavy with the weight of the journey that had brought them there. They exchanged vows, promising to support each other through the trials ahead. The ceremony, though fraught with challenges, became a testament to their resilience and determination. The reception that followed was filled with laughter and joy, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous days. Guests marveled at the beauty of the event, unaware of the turmoil that had preceded it. Sarah glanced around the room, feeling a sense of hope for the first time. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that with Michael by her side, they could face whatever came their way. As the evening drew to a close, Michael took Sarah's hand and led her to the dance floor. They moved together to the music, finding solace in each other's presence. For a moment, amidst the swirling chaos of their new life, they found peace. Henry called an emergency meeting in the study. "Someone is trying to sabotage this wedding," he said, his voice cold with anger. "We need to find out who." Suspicion fell on David, who had been seen near the mansion recently. Michael decided to confront him. "David," Michael said, finding him at a local bar. "I know you're behind this. Why?" David smirked, his jealousy evident. "Sarah deserves better than to be a pawn in your father's game." "Maybe she does," Michael admitted, surprising David. "But she made a choice. Respect that." David's expression hardened. "If you care about her, you'll call off this sham of a wedding." Michael's eyes narrowed. "This isn't just about me or my father. It's about Sarah and her family. Your interference only makes things harder for her." David seemed taken aback by Michael's sincerity. After a tense moment, he finally relented. "Fine, I'll back off." Back at the mansion, the chaos gradually settled. With the saboteur exposed and deterred, the preparations resumed smoothly. The night before the wedding, Sarah stood on the balcony, looking out over the city. Michael joined her, the cool breeze easing some of the tension. "Tomorrow, everything changes," Michael said softly. Sarah nodded, her heart heavy but resolute. "Yes, it does, but maybe change isn't so bad." Michael smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "We'll face it together then." The day of the wedding dawned clear and bright, the early morning sun casting a golden glow over the grand venue where the ceremony was to take place. The Walker mansion had been transformed into a floral wonderland, with intricate arrangements lining the pathways and adorning the entrance. Guests, dressed in their finest attire, began to arrive, their chatter a mix of admiration and speculative whispers. Sarah stood in a small, elegantly decorated room off the main hall, her heart pounding. Her mother fussed over her dress, a beautiful yet simple gown that contrasted starkly with the opulence around her. "You look stunning," Sarah, her mother said, her eyes welling with pride and emotion. "Thank you, Mom," Sarah replied, her voice barely a whisper. She glanced at herself in the mirror, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. Today, she was stepping into a world that was not her own for the sake of her family. In another room, Michael adjusted his tie, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. His best man, his childhood friend Alex, clapped him on the back. "You ready for this, Michael?" Michael met his friend's gaze in the mirror. "Ready as I'll ever be," he said, forcing a smile. "It's just, this isn't how I imagined my wedding day." "I know," Alex replied, his voice gentle. "But sometimes life takes us on unexpected paths. Just remember why you're doing this." Michael nodded, taking a deep breath. As he left the room, he caught a glimpse of his father, Henry, giving last-minute instructions to the staff. Their eyes met, and Henry gave him a reassuring nod. The ceremony began with a soft melody played by a string quartet, setting a serene tone. Guests filled the seats, their eyes turning to the aisle as Sarah made her entrance. Michael stood at the altar, his breath catching as he saw her. For a moment, everything else faded away. She looked beautiful, her inner strength radiating outward. As she reached his side, he offered her a gentle smile, which she returned hesitantly. The officiant began the ceremony, his voice a calming presence. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Michael and Sarah. This union is a testament to the power of love and the bonds that hold us together." As the vows were exchanged, Sarah's voice trembled slightly but held firm. "I, Sarah, take you, Michael, to be my husband. I promise to support you, to honor you, and to stand by you through all that life may bring." Michael's eyes softened as he spoke his vows. "I, Michael, take you, Sarah, to be my wife. I promise to cherish you, to respect you, and to walk with you through whatever comes our way." The officiant cleared his throat and said, "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." As their lips met in a brief, symbolic kiss, the reception that followed was a blur of congratulations and glad smiles. The grand facade of Michael's mansion loomed large as Sarah stood at the entrance, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The staff lined up to greet her, their expressions ranging from polite neutrality to thinly veiled skepticism. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped inside, ready to embrace her new life. "Welcome, Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Daniels, the head housekeeper, said with a stiff smile. "We've prepared the guest suite for you." "Thank you," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. As Sarah settled into her new home, the initial days were a blur of unfamiliar faces and routines. The opulence of the mansion, with its high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and lavish decor, only added to her sense of displacement. One evening, as Sarah wandered through the mansion, she found herself in the library. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books, feeling a sense of calm amidst the chaos of her thoughts. Michael entered, his presence filling the room with an awkward tension. "How are you settling in?" Michael asked, trying to bridge the gap between them. "It's a lot to take in," Sarah admitted, turning to face him. "Everything here is so different from what I'm used to." "I can imagine," Michael said, his tone gentle. "If there's anything you need, just let me know." "Thank you," Sarah said, offering a small smile. "I'm still adjusting." As days turned into weeks, Michael and Sarah began to navigate their new reality. There were moments of friction as their different upbringings and expectations clashed. One morning, Sarah found Michael in the kitchen, frustratedly trying to make breakfast. "Do you need some help?" Sarah offered, stepping in to assist. "I thought I'd surprise you with breakfast," Michael admitted, his cheeks flushing slightly. "But I think I'm more of a hindrance than a help." Sarah laughed softly, the tension easing. "Let's do it together. I'll show you how it's done." Michael admired Sarah's patience and her ability to find joy in the simplest tasks. He began to see the world through her eyes, appreciating the small moments that he had often overlooked in his privileged life. One afternoon, while exploring the mansion, Sarah stumbled upon a hidden door in the east wing. Curious, she pushed it open and gasped at what she found. The room was filled with canvases, paints, and unfinished artworks. The light filtering through the tall windows cast a warm glow on the vibrant colors of Michael's secret passion. "Michael," she called out, her voice echoing in the spacious room. Michael appeared at the doorway, a look of surprise on his face. "I see you found my studio," he said, a hint of embarrassment in his tone. "These are incredible," Sarah said, walking among the canvases. "Why do you keep this hidden?" Michael sighed, stepping into the room. "My father never approved. He always saw it as a distraction from my responsibilities." "But this is a part of who you are," Sarah said, her eyes meeting his. "You shouldn't have to hide it." Michael looked at her, a mixture of gratitude and sadness in his eyes. "It's not that simple, Sarah. My father has certain expectations." Sarah reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "Maybe it's time to show him that you can be both a responsible son and a passionate artist." Michael nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "You're right. Maybe it's time to stop hiding." Over the following weeks, Sarah's humility and kindness continued to influence Michael. He began to open up more, sharing his thoughts and dreams with her. One evening, they sat together in the garden, the twilight casting a serene glow over the landscape. "I never thought I'd say this," Michael began, his voice thoughtful. "But I'm glad you're here, Sarah. You've brought a perspective into my life that I desperately needed." Sarah smiled, her heart warming at his words. The days turned into weeks, and as Sarah and Michael began to settle into their new life, the undercurrents of tension started to surface. Michael faced increasing pressure from his business associates, many of whom openly mocked his marriage. "Michael, why tie yourself to someone so common?" one associate sneered during a board meeting. "You could have any woman in the city." Michael's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "My personal life is not up for discussion in this boardroom. Let's focus on the numbers." Despite his calm exterior, the constant jabs took their toll. Meanwhile, Sarah faced her own battles. At social gatherings, she was often the target of subtle hostility and snide remarks. "How quaint," one woman said at a charity event, her smile thin and insincere. "A cleaner marrying into the Walker family. It sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it?" Sarah smiled politely, refusing to rise to the bait. "Fairy tales often have more truth than we realize." One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Michael found Sarah in the garden, her face drawn with fatigue. "Hey," he said softly, sitting beside her. "Rough day." "You could say that," Sarah replied, her voice tired. "I don't think I'll ever fit into your world." Michael took her hand, his touch gentle. "You belong here, Sarah. Don't let them make you feel otherwise." As the weeks passed, Michael found himself increasingly drawn to Sarah. Her resilience, kindness, and unwavering support began to break through his carefully constructed walls. He admired how she faced every challenge with grace, her strength becoming a source of inspiration for him. However, their growing bond was soon tested by an unexpected threat. During a critical business negotiation, a competitor, Robert Harris, decided to exploit Sarah's past to undermine Michael. "Michael," Robert said with a smug smile, "I couldn't help but hear some interesting stories about your wife. It seems her family has quite a colorful history." Michael's eyes narrowed. "What are you getting at, Robert?" "Oh, nothing," Robert replied, feigning innocence. "Just that it's interesting how quickly secrets come to light." The insinuation was clear. Sarah's family had struggled with financial difficulties, and her father had been involved in a minor scandal years ago. Though resolved, it was enough to cause a stir. The next day, tabloids splashed headlines about the scandalous past of Michael Walker's wife. The articles painted Sarah in an unflattering light, casting doubts on her character and intentions. "Michael, I'm so sorry," Sarah said, tears in her eyes as she read the article. "I never wanted to bring this kind of trouble to you." Michael wrapped his arms around her, his voice firm. "This isn't your fault, Sarah. Harris is trying to use you to get to me. We'll handle this together." Despite the media frenzy, Michael's support for Sarah never wavered. He addressed the board, reaffirming his commitment to his wife and condemning the smear campaign. "Sarah's past is irrelevant to her character and our marriage," he declared. "Anyone who has a problem with that can deal with me." The tension in the conference room was palpable as Michael faced his board of directors. The stakes were high, with a major business deal hanging in the balance. Across the table, Robert Harris smirked, sensing an opportunity to undermine Michael further. "This partnership with global tech is crucial," one board member said, looking pointedly at Michael. "But there are concerns about the recent negative press involving your wife."
Michael took a deep breath, his jaw set. Sarah's past has no bearing on this deal. We should be focusing on the benefits of this partnership, not personal matters.
Harris leaned forward, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Public perception matters, Michael. If we appear vulnerable, it could affect our market position." Michael's eyes flashed with determination. "I stand by my wife. If anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me." The board members exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to proceed. The tension was broken by a knock on the door. Sarah entered, her presence calm and composed. "Excuse me," she said, meeting everyone's gaze. "I have a proposal that might address these concerns." The room fell silent as Sarah walked to the head of the table, a stack of documents in her hands. "I've been reviewing the terms of the global tech deal. There are a few points that could be leveraged to our advantage." Henry, who had been silently observing, raised an eyebrow. "Go on, Sarah." Sarah outlined her ideas, highlighting strategic adjustments and potential benefits that had been overlooked. Her insights were sharp, her analysis thorough. As she spoke, the skepticism in the room began to fade, replaced by genuine interest. When she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then, one of the senior board members nodded. "These are excellent points. We hadn't considered these angles." Harris's smug expression faltered, but he quickly recovered. "This doesn't change the public perception issue." "Public perception can be managed," Sarah countered. "What matters is the strength of our position, and with these adjustments we can secure the deal and mitigate any fallout." Henry looked at his son, then back at Sarah, his expression thoughtful. "Thank you, Sarah. Your proposal is impressive." Michael stood, his voice firm. "I think it's clear that Sarah's contributions are valuable. I suggest we move forward with her recommendations." The board agreed, and the tension in the room eased. As the meeting adjourned, Henry approached Michael and Sarah, a mixture of pride and uncertainty in his eyes. "Michael, may I speak with you privately?" Henry asked. Michael nodded, and they stepped into Henry's office. Henry closed the door, turning to face his son. "I underestimated Sarah. Her insights were remarkable." Michael nodded. "She's intelligent and capable, more than most people give her credit for." Henry sighed, his stern facade cracking. "I've been hard on you, Michael, on both of you. This arrangement was meant to teach you a lesson, but perhaps it's me who needed to learn something." Michael looked at his father, seeing a vulnerability he had never witnessed before. "What are you saying, Dad?" "I'm saying," Henry began, his voice softer, "that I see now how much Sarah means to you and how much she brings to our lives. I questioned her place here, but I was wrong." Michael felt a swell of emotion. "I love her, Dad. She's changed my life in ways I never expected." Henry nodded, a small smile forming. "Then you have my support fully." That evening, during a business dinner, Michael stood up to make a toast. "I want to thank everyone for their hard work and dedication. And I especially want to acknowledge my wife, Sarah, for her invaluable contributions." Sarah looked up, surprised but touched. The room erupted in applause, and for the first time she felt truly accepted. As the evening wore on, Michael and Sarah found a quiet moment on the balcony. The city lights sparkled below, a testament to their journey together. "Thank you for standing up for me," Sarah said softly. Michael took her hand, his eyes filled with love. "Thank you for showing me what really matters." Despite the triumphs, Sarah felt the weight of every skeptical glance and snide remark. One evening, after a particularly harsh comment from a guest, Sarah retreated to the solitude of the garden, tears stinging her eyes. Michael found her there, the moonlight casting a soft glow on her face. "Sarah," he called gently, approaching her. "What's wrong?" Sarah wiped her eyes quickly, trying to compose herself. "It's just everything. The pressure, the judgment. I don't know if I can keep doing this." Michael's heart ached at the sight of her distress. "Sarah, I had no idea it was affecting you this much. Please talk to me." She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "I feel like an outsider here, Michael. No matter what I do, I can't seem to fit in. And it's not just the guests. Even some of the staff look at me like I don't belong." Michael reached out, taking her hands in his. "You do belong, Sarah, more than anyone. You've changed my life, and I can't imagine it without you." Sarah looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. "Michael, I don't know if I can stay. The constant scrutiny, it's too much." Michael's grip tightened on her hands, desperation in his voice. "Please, Sarah, don't leave. I love you. I need you by my side. We'll face this together, I promise." Sarah's resolve wavered, the depth of Michael's feelings touching her heart. "Do you really mean that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "With all my heart," Michael said, his eyes earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this work." Just as Sarah was about to respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting from sadness to alarm. "It's the hospital. It's about my mother." Michael's concern deepened. "What happened?" Sarah answered the call, her face paling as she listened. "My mother, she's taken a turn for the worse. I need to go to her." Michael didn't hesitate. "I'll come with you." "No," Sarah said firmly, though her voice was strained. "I need to do this alone. She needs me, and I have to be there for her." Michael nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I understand, but know that I'm here for you, no matter what." Sarah packed quickly, her heart heavy with worry. As she prepared to leave, Michael held her close. "Take care of your mother, Sarah, and come back to me when you can. I'll be waiting." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she kissed him goodbye. "Thank you, Michael, for everything." At the hospital, Sarah found her mother weak but conscious. "Mom, I'm here," she said, holding her hand. Her mother smiled faintly. "Sarah, my darling, I'm so glad you're here." For the next few days, Sarah devoted herself to her mother's care, the bond between them providing strength despite the exhaustion Sarah felt. A renewed sense of purpose back at the mansion, Michael struggled with the emptiness left by Sarah's absence. He threw himself into his work, but his thoughts constantly drifted to her. He realized that her presence had become the anchor in his life, and he was determined to make things right. One evening, as Michael sat in his studio, lost in his thoughts, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah. "Mom is stable now. I'll be home soon." Relief washed over him, and he replied immediately, "Take your time. I'll be here." A week later, Sarah returned to the mansion, greeted by Michael's warm embrace. "I missed you," he whispered, holding her tight. "I missed you too," Sarah replied, her voice full of emotion. In the quiet of the evening, they sat together, the bond between them stronger than ever. The turning point had come, and with it, a new understanding of their shared journey. Michael stood in his office, gazing out over the city skyline. The recent weeks had been a whirlwind of change, but with Sarah's return, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to implement the values Sarah had taught him into his business practices, focusing on integrity and social responsibility. The first step was a company-wide meeting. As the employees gathered, Michael took the stage, his voice steady and confident. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for Walker Industries. We are implementing policies that prioritize ethical practices and community engagement. This isn't just about business, it's about doing what's right. The staff exchanged curious glances, but there was a noticeable shift in the room. Michael's sincerity was palpable, and his leadership began to inspire a collective sense of purpose. Back at the mansion, Sarah and Henry found themselves spending more time together. Henry, once aloof and imposing, had started to soften. One evening they sat in the library, the crackling fireplace casting a warm glow. "Sarah," Henry began, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "I owe you an apology. I misjudged you and the impact you would have on my son and our family." Sarah looked up, surprised by his candor. "Thank you, Henry. That means a lot." Henry sighed, leaning back in his chair. "You know, when I built this company, I was driven by the fear of failure. My own father was a harsh man, never satisfied with anything I did. I swore I would prove him wrong, but in doing so, I became just like him." Sarah listened intently, her heart aching for the man who had always seemed so unyielding. "It's never too late to change, Henry. You've already taken the first step by recognizing it." Henry nodded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "Your influence on Michael has been profound. He's become the man I always hoped he would be, and that's thanks to you." As the weeks passed, Michael and Sarah faced numerous challenges together. Implementing new policies wasn't easy, and there were many who resisted the changes. One afternoon, Michael returned home, visibly frustrated. "Long day?" Sarah asked, meeting him at the door. "You could say that," Michael replied, sighing. "Not everyone is on board with the new direction. It's like trying to turn a ship in a storm." Sarah placed a comforting hand on his arm. "Change is never easy, but you're doing the right thing, and I'm here with you every step of the way." One evening, as they sat in the garden, Michael turned to Sarah, his expression serious. "You know, I don't think I would have had the courage to make these changes without you." Sarah smiled, her eyes reflecting the love she felt for him. "You've always had the courage, Michael. You just needed to believe in yourself." Their quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Henry approached, looking more relaxed than usual. "Mind if I join you?" "Of course not," Michael said, moving over to make room. As they sat together, Henry began to speak, his voice filled with vulnerability. "I haven't been the best father or leader. I've made mistakes, and I've hurt people I care about, but I want to do better, for both of you." Sarah reached out, taking his hand. "We all make mistakes, Henry. What matters is what we do next." Henry squeezed her hand gently, his eyes misting over. "Thank you, Sarah. You and Michael have given me hope that change is possible. I want to support the new direction, not just for the company, but for our family." Michael looked at his father, a newfound respect in his eyes. "It's never too late to make things right, Dad. We can face these challenges together." The three of them sat in companionable silence, the garden's tranquility providing a soothing backdrop to their thoughts. The once intimidating mansion now felt more like a home, filled with the promise of a new beginning. As the evening deepened, Michael spoke up. "Tomorrow we start implementing the new employee welfare program. It's a big step, but it's necessary." Henry nodded, determination etched on his face. "And I'll be right there with you, supporting every decision." Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of unity and strength. Together, we can accomplish anything. In the days that followed, the Walkers worked tirelessly to turn their vision into reality. The path was fraught with obstacles, but with each challenge, their resolve strengthened. They communicated openly, supported one another, and slowly but surely they began to see the fruits of their labor. Employees who were initially skeptical began to see the positive changes and morale improved. The company culture shifted from one of rigid hierarchy to one of collaboration and mutual respect. One afternoon, Michael called a meeting with the entire staff. Standing before them, he spoke from the heart. "I know these changes haven't been easy, but we're building something better together. I believe in each and every one of you, and I know we can achieve great things." Henry stood beside his son, adding, "I've learned a lot over the past months. Most importantly, I've learned that true leadership is about inspiring and supporting those around you. Thank you for your patience and for believing in this new direction." The room erupted in applause, a tangible sign of the unity and shared vision that had taken root. As the meeting concluded, Sarah watched from the sidelines, pride swelling in her heart. She had witnessed an incredible transformation, not just in the company, but in the people she had come to care for deeply. That evening, as they gathered once more in the garden, Michael turned to Sarah and Henry. "We've come a long way, but this is just the beginning. There's so much more we can do." Sarah nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "And we'll do it together." Henry smiled, a sense of peace and fulfillment washing over him. Yes, together, as a family. In that moment, under the stars, they made a silent promise to each other to face whatever the future held with courage, love, and unwavering support. The journey ahead was bound to be challenging, but they knew they were stronger together, ready to build a legacy of which they could all be proud. Henry smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything." In that moment, the three of them sat in companionable silence, united by a shared commitment to growth and transformation. The mansion, once a symbol of rigid tradition, now felt like a place of hope and renewal. The grand ballroom of the conference center buzzed with anticipation. This was Michael's moment. He stood at the podium, the spotlight casting a warm glow on his determined face. Executives and investors filled the room, waiting to hear his proposal. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael began, his voice steady. "Today I'm proud to present a new direction for Walker Industries, one that not only promises growth but also embraces our responsibility to the community." He detailed the innovative strategies and ethical practices that he and Sarah had developed together. The room fell silent, captivated by his vision. When he finished, there was a moment of stillness before the applause erupted. Henry, standing at the back of the room, felt a swell of pride. As the crowd dispersed, he approached Michael, a broad smile on his face. "You did it, son. You've made me prouder than I ever thought possible." Michael smiled, his eyes scanning the room for Sarah. "Thank you, Dad, but I couldn't have done it without Sarah." Henry nodded, turning to address the crowd. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone very special, Sarah Walker, whose wisdom and insight have been instrumental in shaping this new vision." The room turned to Sarah, who stood modestly at the edge of the gathering, her cheeks flushing with a mix of pride and shyness. The applause that followed was even more enthusiastic, echoing through the grand ballroom. Michael stepped off the podium and made his way to Sarah, taking her hand in his. "You deserve this recognition, Sarah. You've been my guiding light." Sarah squeezed his hand, her eyes shining. "We've done this together, Michael. This is just the beginning." Henry joined them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "You've both shown me what true leadership and partnership look like. I'm grateful for everything you've done." As the evening continued, the sense of celebration was palpable. Conversations buzzed with excitement about the future of Walker Industries, and the positive impact of the new direction. Later that night, back at the mansion, they gathered in the cozy warmth of the study. Henry poured a toast, raising his glass high, to new beginnings and to the incredible journey ahead. Michael and Sarah clinked their glasses with his, the sound a harmonious note of unity and hope. Sarah looked around the room, her heart full. This feels like a family now, a real family. Henry nodded, emotion flickering in his eyes. It is, Sarah. It truly is. As the night drew on, they talked about their plans, their dreams, and the endless possibilities before them. The mansion, with its grand halls and storied history, was no longer just a house. It was a home filled with love, respect, and a shared vision for the future. Together, they had transformed not only a company but also their lives, forging bonds that would stand the test of time. And as they sat there, surrounded by the warmth of their newfound unity, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger than ever before. Sarah, standing near the stage, blushed as the audience turned to her, their applause a testament to her growing respect and admiration within the community. She smiled, feeling truly accepted for the first time. Later that evening, back at the mansion, a sense of celebration filled the air. Michael and Sarah hosted a family gathering, the house alive with laughter and joy. As the guests mingled, Michael and Sarah found a quiet moment on the balcony. "I can't believe how far we've come," Sarah said, leaning against Michael. Michael wrapped an arm around her, looking out at the twinkling city lights. "And we're just getting started." The night continued peacefully, the family gathering a symbol of their strengthened bonds. As the last guests left, Michael and Sarah sat together in the garden, the quiet of the evening wrapping around them. "Do you ever think about what's next?" Sarah asked, resting her head on Michael's shoulder. "Every day," Michael replied, his voice filled with warmth and certainty. "And whatever comes, we'll face it together." The next morning, as Sarah sorted through the mail, she found an anonymous letter addressed to her. Intrigued, she opened it, her eyes widening in surprise as she read the contents. "Michael, look at this," she said, handing him the letter. Michael took the letter, his eyebrows raising as he scanned the words. A hidden inheritance? This could change everything. Sarah nodded, excitement and curiosity mingling in her gaze. It's a chance for a new adventure. Michael smiled, taking her hand. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." The letter revealed that Sarah's late grandfather had left her a substantial inheritance, hidden away until now. It included not just money, but also a property in a picturesque countryside village, far from the bustling city. "Can you believe it?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "This could be our chance to start fresh, away from all the chaos." Michael nodded, feeling a mixture of disbelief and hope. "It's incredible. We could build something entirely new, create a life that truly belongs to us." Over the next few days, they made plans to visit the property. The anticipation of this new chapter filled them with a renewed sense of purpose. As they traveled to the village, the landscape changed from the urban sprawl of the city to the serene, rolling hills of the countryside. When they arrived at the property, they were greeted by an old but charming house, surrounded by lush gardens and tall, ancient trees. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the city's pollution. "This is it," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder as she took in their new surroundings. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined." Michael wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "It's perfect. A place where we can build our dreams." As they explored the house and grounds, they discovered hidden treasures, old family heirlooms, letters, and photographs that told the story of Sarah's ancestors. Each discovery deepened their connection to the place and to each other. In the days that followed, they began to make the house their own. They worked side by side, restoring the old property, planting new gardens, and breathing life into every corner of their new home. Their life in the countryside was a stark contrast to the tumultuous beginning of their relationship. The peace and quiet allowed them to grow closer, their bond strengthening with each passing day. They found joy in the simple pleasures of life: morning walks through the gardens, quiet evenings by the fireplace, and the satisfaction of working together to create something beautiful. As they sat together one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and gold, Sarah turned to Michael, her heart full. "Thank you for believing in us, for being my partner in this journey." Michael smiled, his eyes reflecting the colors of the setting sun. "Thank you for giving me a chance to learn and grow, for being my anchor and my inspiration." Their life, though filled with its own set of challenges, was now rich with purpose and love. They had found not just a house, but a home, a place where they could build their future together, hand in hand, facing whatever came next with unwavering faith and shared determination. Michael read it, his eyebrows raising in astonishment. A hidden inheritance. This could change everything. Sarah nodded, excitement and curiosity mingling in her gaze. "It's a chance for a new adventure." Michael smiled, taking her hand and squeezing it gently. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." The letter revealed that Sarah's late grandfather had left her a substantial inheritance hidden away until now. It included not just money, but also a property in a picturesque countryside village, far from the bustling city. "Can you believe it?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "This could be our chance to start fresh, away from all the chaos." Michael nodded, feeling a mixture of disbelief and hope. "It's incredible. We could build something entirely new, create a life that truly belongs to us." Over the next few days, they made plans to visit the property. The anticipation of this new chapter filled them with a renewed sense of purpose. As they traveled to the village, the landscape changed from the urban sprawl of the city to the serene, rolling hills of the countryside. When they arrived at the property, they were greeted by an old but charming house, surrounded by lush gardens and tall, ancient trees. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the city's pollution. "This is it," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder as she took in their new surroundings. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined." Michael wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "It's perfect. A place where we can build our dreams." As they explored the house and grounds, they discovered hidden treasures, old family heirlooms, letters, and photographs that told the story of Sarah's ancestors. Each discovery deepened their connection to the place and to each other. In the days that followed, they began to make the house their own. They worked side by side, restoring the old property, planting new gardens, and breathing life into every corner of their new home. Their life in the countryside was a stark contrast to the tumultuous beginning of their relationship. The peace and quiet allowed them to grow closer, their bond strengthening with each passing day. They found joy in the simple pleasures of life: morning walks through the gardens, quiet evenings by the fireplace, and the satisfaction of working together to create something beautiful. As they sat together one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and gold, Sarah turned to Michael, her heart full. "Thank you for believing in us, for being my partner in this journey." Michael smiled, his eyes reflecting the colors of the setting sun. "Thank you for giving me a chance to learn and grow, for being my anchor and my inspiration." Their life, though filled with its own set of challenges, was now rich with purpose and love. They had found not just a house, but a home, a place where they could build their future together, hand in hand, facing whatever came next with unwavering faith and shared determination. "This is it," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with awe as she absorbed their new surroundings. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined." Michael wrapped his arm around her shoulders, drawing her close. "It's perfect. A place where we can build our dreams." As they explored the house and grounds, they uncovered hidden treasures, ancient family heirlooms, faded letters, and sepia-toned photographs that vividly portrayed Sarah's ancestors. Each discovery felt like unearthing a piece of history, intertwining them more deeply with the essence of the place and with each other. In the days that followed, they set about transforming the house into their sanctuary. They worked tirelessly side by side, infusing new life into the aged property, planting vibrant gardens, and imbuing every corner with their love and care. The peaceful countryside provided a stark contrast to the chaotic beginning of their relationship. The tranquility allowed them to grow closer, their bond strengthening with each passing day. They found profound joy in the simple pleasures of life: morning strolls through the blossoming gardens, quiet evenings by the crackling fireplace, and the deep satisfaction of creating something beautiful together. Each shared moment was a testament to their enduring love and commitment. Their days were filled with laughter and hard work, while their nights were spent under starlit skies, whispering dreams of the future. They discovered that true happiness lay not in grand gestures, but in the small, everyday moments they shared. One evening, as the setting sun painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, Sarah turned to Michael, her heart brimming with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in us, for being my partner in this journey." Michael's smile mirrored the warmth of the sunset. "Thank you for giving me a chance to learn and grow, for being my anchor and my inspiration." Though their life was not without its challenges, it was now rich with purpose and love. They had found more than just a house; they had discovered a home. It was a place where they could build their future together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next with unwavering faith and shared determination. As they sat together one magical evening, the sky ablaze with the mesmerizing hues of a golden pink sunset, Sarah felt a profound wave of gratitude wash over her. Turning to Michael, her voice trembling with emotion, she said, "Thank you for having faith in us, for being my steadfast partner on this incredible journey." Michael's smile was as warm and radiant as the setting sun itself. "Thank you for allowing me to grow and evolve, for being my unwavering support and my source of inspiration," he responded, his voice filled with heartfelt sincerity. Their lives, despite the inevitable hurdles and obstacles, were now enriched with a deep sense of purpose and an abundance of love. They had discovered something far greater than just a physical dwelling; they had found a true sanctuary. It was a place where their dreams could take root and flourish, where they could build their future side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with unshakable faith and shared determination. Every moment spent in their newfound haven brought them closer together, reinforcing the bond that had been forged through trials and triumphs. They embraced the tranquility of their surroundings, finding joy in the simplest of pleasures, whether it was a quiet walk through their blossoming garden, a cozy evening by the flickering fireplace, or the shared laughter that echoed through their home. As the stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, Sarah and Michael held hands, their hearts intertwined with hope and love. They knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, drawing strength from the profound connection they had nurtured and the unwavering commitment they had made to one another. In that moment, as the last light of day faded into night, they felt an overwhelming sense of contentment and anticipation. Their journey was far from over, but with each other by their side, they were ready to embrace the unknown, confident that their love and partnership would guide them through whatever came next. And so, in the midst of a surprising arrangement, where a millionaire forced his son to marry a poor maid, we witnessed a beautiful journey of growth, love, and transformation. Michael and Sarah's story teaches us the true value of humility, dedication, and the power of love to overcome life's challenges. Now we want to hear from you. What have you learned from their journey? Please share one thing that you have learned and will bring into practice in your own life in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.